America's Weimar moment. What DoorDash culture reveals about economic decline. When the future becomes unaffordable. Saving money stops making sense. And when saving money is pointless. A $30 poke bowl suddenly feels rational. The paradox of spending in decline. There is an old joke by Yogi Berra. A place became so crowded that nobody goes there anymore. Here is the modern American version. Young people face the bleakest economic prospects in generations. Yet they are spending more than ever. A now deleted Reddit thread briefly pierced the illusion. A 44-year-old restaurant owner asked a simple question. Where are kids getting the money to live a DoorDash lifestyle? He knew the math intimately. A $16 poke bowl. Delivered. With tip. Nearly $30. For a six-figure earner? Fine. But his customers were high school students. Ordering multiple times a week. The post went viral. Then vanished. But the explanation that followed lingered. Present maximization. One response cut straight through the noise. They're behaving like people living in a post-middle class economy. A world where ownership is unattainable. Saving is futile. Buying a home is impossible. Upward mobility is gone. So what happens? People shift to present maximization. If the future is unaffordable anyway, why not buy the burrito now? This is not recklessness. It is rational behavior inside a broken incentive system. Financial analyst Luke Grumman added a chilling historical echo. Watch Cabaret. The youth in Weimar Germany behaved the same way. When saving used to mean something. For most of the post-war era, saving money had a purpose. Savings became a down payment. A job became a mortgage. Discipline translated into stability. Money had meaning because it could be converted into a future. That world is gone. Homeownership has become a mirage. According to recent data, the average American household is priced out of 3/4 of the housing market. The homeownership rate for people under 35 keeps falling. First-time buyers now make up barely 1/5 of the market. Half the historical norm. Even mainstream institutions now warn about doom spending. Spending driven by the belief that the future is already lost. Financial nihilism. Analyst Dmitry Kafinas gave this behavior a name. Financial nihilism. When money no longer functions as a store of value. People abandon traditional paths. Old vices return in new forms. Reckless crypto speculation. Betting on real-world events. Monetizing intimacy. Gambling dressed up as innovation. Not because people are immoral, but because the system no longer rewards patience. The Great Divide, wages versus assets. Two economies now run in parallel. One is built on wages, gig work, hourly labor, and digital tips. The other is built on asset ownership. Real estate. Stocks. Credit access. The gap between them is widening relentlessly. The dollar still benchmarks everything. But as a store of value, it erodes faster than most people can earn it. So success no longer comes from earning more dollars. It comes from owning assets. And if assets are unreachable, then $30 really is just a poke bowl. A historical mirror. This behavior is not new. In 17th century England, historians estimate that beer and ale consumed up to a quarter of a labourer's income. Not because people were irresponsible, but because saving was pointless in a rigid hierarchy with no real mobility. DoorDash culture is the digital equivalent. If this sounds like feudalism, that's because it is. Or more precisely, feudalism fused with pre-Weimar detachment. A world where wages lag prices, money is debased, and the future feels ominous. From growth to stagnation, the post-war decades were defined by growth. Manufacturing, infrastructure, productivity, rising wages. Savings were rewarded. Housing was affordable. Debt was manageable. The 2020s are defined by something else entirely. Asset inflation, debt-fueled consumption, financial engineering, central bank intervention. Growth is squeezed out of an empty tube. In 2024, the U.S. economy grew 2.4%, propped up by nearly $2 trillion in deficit spending, and inflation metrics that understate lived reality. GDP no longer distinguishes between productive growth and debt-fueled consumption. The return of feudal logic. When growth ends, economies become zero-sum. In expansionary eras, mobility exists. In stagnation, hierarchy hardens. This is exactly what happened in medieval Europe. After centuries of agricultural and technological expansion, limits were reached. Land ran out. Yields fell. Population outpaced resources. The result was feudalism. Rigid hierarchies. Rent extraction. Declining freedom. Today's version looks different, but the logic is identical. Elites own scarce assets. Everyone else pays rising participation costs. For diminishing returns, asset prices rise relentlessly. Not by accident, but by design. Markets are always too big to fail. Losses are socialized. Gains remain private. This is balance sheet feudalism. Credit as power. In medieval times, power came from land. Today, it comes from access to credit. Ordinary people pay 25% on credit cards. Too big to fail institutions borrow nearly for free and receive bailouts when bets go wrong. That cheap credit is then used to bid up assets even further. Elites protect their holdings through political capture. Everyone else pays rent, literal and figurative. Corporations become mini-sovereigns. Housing, employment, and opportunity consolidate upward. Where feudalism meets Weimar. This is not a stable system. It is rigid and fragile. Highly financialized. Heavily indebted. Psychologically unstable. Generation Z senses this intuitively. The US is not Weimar Germany. But DoorDash culture reveals the psychological preconditions. Cynicism. Detachment. Present consumption over future planning. Spending, because saving is pointless, becomes self-fulfilling. Weimar was not just hyperinflation. It was nihilism before collapse. The strange present. Beneath the frictionless glow of apps, tap-to-pay convenience, and algorithmic abundance, lies an economy operating under entirely new rules. The signs of decline do not look like ruins. They look like food arriving on time.